Hello everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, and today I'm working through day 8 of By the Well for God's Fear the Lord kit. Now this day is all about refuge and how when we fear the Lord we find refuge in Him. And I thought that was the perfect time to use the Forest Friends stamp. I love all the animals in this stamp set, and just thinking of how animals take care of their young reminds me of them creating a refuge for them. And so I thought this was the perfect time to use this stamp set. Now I am stamping these animals on some watercolor cardstock with VersaFine black ink and then also using some clear embossing powder over them. This helps keep the distress oxides in the right place when you are watercoloring with them. Sometimes when you watercolor they can kind of bleed out of the stamped lines, but when you use embossing powder and get that kind of raised edge, it'll help hold those together. So I'm just trying to kind of shade different oranges in on this fox, and then I will move on to the other animals. So as I watercolor these animals in, I want to give you a little snippet from this devotional that Tom wrote. And he quotes Proverbs 14:26 first and says, "In the fear of the Lord one has strong confidence, and his children will have a refuge." And then he says, "Our fear of the Lord not only strengthens us to turn from evil, but it also provides for us a refuge. This is not only a refuge from the evil in the world, but also from trials and tribulation. When you are faced with a tough challenge, be it a health condition, relationships, work, financial, or any other trial, fear the Lord. He is your refuge." So that is actually the Bible verse I am journaling in today, Proverbs 14:26. Now I did grab an orange library card that was included in the Sunflower Harvest ephemera pack from By the Well for God. Now that ephemera pack is currently sold out, but you can grab one of the other library cards that was included in the kit. Now, if you've never watercolored with distress oxides, it is so much fun. It is actually one of my favorite ways to use distress oxides, and I just kind of smush them down on a nonstick mat, and they blend so beautifully. I'm going to work on fussy cutting these out. I did fast forward this a little bit because I figured you didn't really need to see me fussy cut all these because it gets kind of tedious. But for those antlers, I actually did take out my cutting mat and just use an X-Acto knife to get all the little tiny spaces out of these antlers. Now, all this work is definitely not necessary. You could just leave a little outline around all the animals, but it's just a preference of mine to get all those little tiny pieces. And now I'm trying to see how I want to line these up on this tag. I really wanted to use a tag on this page and kind of use it as a layering piece, but now I feel like I need another animal because 2's kind of weird. You need that third one. And so I grabbed the little tiny bunny and I am coloring it in some gray. Now, if you're wanting part of your animal to be white, grab some antique linen and just water it down very lightly, and you'll get that creamy white look without leaving the page itself white. I'll end up fussy cutting this bunny out as well. Luckily, there's not too many hard spots on this one, and then I'll work on layering this all up. Now, I do have to say, figuring out how I wanted everything layered took a pretty long time, and sometimes I took breaks to distress edges of cards, like right now, because it was getting a little frustrating trying to figure out everything. So that's what I usually do. If I can't figure out something, I just move on to the next step and then come back to it, because usually once I start putting the page together, it'll kind of come to me. Now, I had picked up these Holtz Stencils earlier this month. I knew I wanted to use them with this kit because I thought it worked perfectly with that brown craft natural kind of look. But I completely forgot about them because I had them stashed in my Holtz ephemera drawer. And luckily I went through it the other day and remembered I had them. And I'm so glad I did because this works perfectly with this page. Again, I'm having a little trouble on placement on how I want everything laid out, so I move on to something else. I grabbed these labels that were part of the digital set, and I had them printed at my local UPS store. I'm just cutting one of the green ones out. I want to bring another color into this page, and I thought it worked well with oranges. And I will use one of the tile alphas to spell out refuge, which was the title for day 8. Again, I'm using my tweezers from Hobby Captain. These are some great sharp tweezers and great for sticking little tiny stickers like this and placing sequins, all those fun little things. They do come in a pack of, I think it's like vinyl tools, and I don't do much vinyl work, but all the tools almost I can use for regular crafting, so it's completely worth it to me. I really want a fun mixed media look on this tag, and so I grabbed some Distress spray stains and also some Distress Oxide sprays, and I'm going to spray that down on this nonstick mat and add a little bit of water to it, and that'll help kind of liquefy it even more and make some really cool brown tones. Now, if you're wanting to see all the layers of your color in your tag, make sure you dry between layers or else you'll lose that look. I also grabbed some antique linen because I wanted it to have this kind of cloudy look, and as you dry it, you'll be able to see that creaminess kind of come out in this tag. I need to work on this myself as well, but when you take some time to just play around with your mixed media stuff, you find those really cool things like how antique linen creates this cloudy look. I love that, and I would never know that if I didn't play around with my sprays and oxides. Now coming back to this placement fiasco, I really wanted those 3 animals, but now the bunny is kind of floating in the air, and so I'm having trouble with that, so let's move on to something again. I really liked this tree line out of the Majestic Mountains stamp set, and so I'm going to take it out. I'm going to stamp it with VersaFine Ink, and then I'm going to actually use the Walnut Stain Embossing Glaze on top of it. Now, this embossing glaze is clear, so you will be able to see through it, but I use the black ink, so it'll kind of be this dark brown black tree line. Now, I did forget to use my powder tool beforehand. I did make sure that the tag was extra dry, but it's still stuck in places that I didn't want it to. And so my little hack for that is having this tiny paintbrush and just going between the tree line and getting all that glaze that I don't want out of there. Now, unfortunately, I'm really good at this hack because there are so many times that I forget to powder my paper before I emboss, but it all works out fine, guys. So then I use my heat tool, and you'll see it turns this really dark brown shiny color, and I really like the look of it. It actually kind of reminds me of fire behind the trees on the tag, and so I think that looks really cool. I decided on this page that I really liked everything diagonally straight, and so I am putting everything very linear up and down, and I am also filling in those cream spots on the tag with just a little bit of brown from my makeup brush. Now, since I have a lot going on in this cluster, I don't want the background to overtake it. Sometimes the background's the most busy thing, but this time it's definitely the cluster. And so I'm just dusting it with some antique linen and also a little bit of frayed burlap without getting too dark. Now, I've really started to start saving pieces that aren't seen in the page, and so you'll see here I kind of line up where I am going to see that stencil, and then I'm going to cut out the rest of it because you won't know that it's not under the tag, and that way I can use that part of the stencil in a completely different page. I'm gluing that down with my Barely Arts precision glue and just holding it there for a second. And then as I line up this tag, I know that I want to add a little bit more texture to this page. And so I grabbed some fabric that I had purchased at Hobby Lobby. I'm trying to decide if I want it on top of the tag or behind it, but ultimately choose on top of it. And all I'm doing is stapling it down on the tag. I start adding some glue to the back of this tag, and as I'm doing that, I remember that I have some of that raffia that was added as a texture to this Bible journaling kit, and I definitely want to add that to the top of this tag. And so I stop adding glue and put the raffia on, and then I'll add the rest of the glue and place it down. Now, once I place this tag down, I'll kind of maneuver the raffia the way I want it. You can kind of extend it and make it kind of floof out a little bit. And so I want it to not be fully floofed out or whatever, but make it a little bit larger. This page is finally starting to come together, and I'm going to add my library card. But first off, I want to add this fox because I want him to be kind of standing on the library card and the tag, kind of like he is up standing looking over that. And so I have to place that fox down first to get the correct placement for the library card. So I grab that mini label that says refuge, and I'm working on placement with that. I know I want that elk to be in the bottom right hand corner of this page, but I'm still having trouble with this bunny floating in air. I want him to kind of have a landing spot, and I'm not getting it when I put him near that refuge title. And so I'm placing him in multiple areas around this page, trying to get that perfect placement. But I also don't like the animals all being in one diagonal line. So since I know I want the elk down in the bottom right hand corner, I'm just going to place him to get going on this page and not worry about the bunny as much. But once I place him, I realize that I definitely can move that bunny down to be next to him. And so I place that refuge title down, and then all I'm going to do to separate the bunny and the elk is add a little bit of foam adhesive to the back side of him, and that kind of separates him while still having him down there in the corner with the elk. Now, as I place him down there, I realize that I still want a little bit of grounding down in that bottom right hand corner, and so I end up taking out my Distress Oxide color and just watercoloring a very, very light line down on the bottom, kind of fading it out to the background, and that will add some grounding to these two animals. Now, I think that I am almost done with this page, and the last thing I have to add is the date stamp. And I decide I'm going to put that date stamp on the left-hand side of the tag. But guys, I get this completely wrong. When I line up my date stamp, I guess I had it placed a little crooked. And so when I roll it, it's definitely crooked and kind of far away from the tag. Now, I could completely be okay with this and just kind of roll with it. But I have these leaves that I created with the leaf fragment die that Tim Holtz released earlier last month, I guess. And so I had created a bunch of leaves to kind of go along with this kit and haven't used them yet. And so I decided this was the perfect time to use one. It covers up my crooked date, and then I will just move my date down, trying to make it not too crooked next to that bunny. And guys, that's it. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. You can go ahead and follow me over on Instagram at Wonderfully Made Handcrafting. I'll link everything I used down below, and if you want to see another page I created for the Fear the Lord kit, click right here.